Hey everyone, Social Solipsist here for another episode of 52 and 52, and this week I am taking a look at Heroes of the Storm, which for the uninitiated is the name of Blizzard's MOBA. Some of you may be aware that I have a bit of a storied history with MOBAs, particularly with League of Legends, which I have mentioned from time to time on this channel. And League is such a horrible, just horrific, toxic community that despite my enjoyment of that game, I quit that game cold turkey about 4 years ago, I want to say. The community was just so awful that for all the good that I enjoyed about the game, I couldn't get over that, and I just left it forever. So when I initially saw that Blizzard was trying to encourage people to play HOTS by suggesting that, by saying if you play enough games, you get some skins for Overwatch, I said jokingly initially to Spencer and Red October that we should give it a go. And when it came out of my mouth, it was a joke, and when it landed in the chat, it was not a joke. So I ended up getting sucked into this game a little bit. Like I said, I really only started playing it for the Overwatch skins, but I've now started playing it more. But we'll get into that a little bit. I was kind of against the whole idea just on the basis of I was worried about my Nom flashbacks from the horrible people in League, but suffice to say that hasn't entirely been the case, so things have been alright. So anyway, I'm going to try and go through this. This is not an entirely comprehensive review since I've only been playing it for about 2 weeks. But I'm going to try and hit the good, the bad, and the middling on this game. So to start off, every MOBA has its unique aspects. Certainly this one has tried to change up the formula in a couple of different ways. Pulled some things from some of the newer entries in the MOBA genre, and also introduced some things of its own in an attempt to create, I guess, the ultimate MOBA is what everybody in the genre is aiming for, is to make the best version of this kind of game. And I think in some ways it does very well, and in some ways it falls pretty flat. So to start off with the good, I think this game adds a lot of variety to the game types just by adding. There's really only 2 maps, I guess, but they add at random. I don't think there's any way to choose, although I've only played quick play and versus AI, so maybe in ranked you get to choose which map and which game type it is, but each time you play there's a new gimmick on the map. Sometimes you have to capture items on the map to curse the other team so that you can get an extra push. Sometimes you've got to capture a point to get like a powerful tower to shoot their towers from range. Sometimes it's to capture Zerg and Zerglings to send extra waves of minions against them, that sort of thing. And I think adding that variety really does a lot to keep the experience from getting boring too quickly. That's not to say that MOBAs in general are boring. I mean, if playing the same map over and over is not your thing, then you're not going to get into MOBAs in the first place. But I think adding that variety is a really nice addition just for the sake of variety. On top of that, I think they've moved away from what I believe all other MOBAs do. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on all MOBAs out there right now, by going to a unified team level based on the total performance of your team, minion kills, hero kills, tower kills, that sort of thing. And your team levels up as a whole. So it's really less about your individual performance and really does a lot to push the focus onto being a team effort. There's not even a proper scoreboard to show kill, death, assist. You only really see that at the very end of the game when it shows, most valuable player and people's performance, the same way it does in, say, Overwatch. And really all of that does a lot to, I think, reduce the toxicity that is very rampant in most other MOBAs. For people who have played MOBAs, you are all probably very familiar with, you have one bad game and your entire team proceeds to scream at you and shit on your head for, just having a bad game. So not having that unified score, not having that scoreboard and having a unified team level really does a lot to, I guess, mentally, if nothing else, mentally encourage people to work as a team and realize that it is a team effort at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that does a lot to make the game less toxic right off the bat. In terms of simplifying, there's a lot of things that the game does to, I guess a lot of them are quality of life improvements. Some of them are just simplifications to the MOBA formula, shall we say. For example, the removal of items. You no longer, unlike other MOBAs, you don't get items in this game. There's no shop. You don't send anyone back to pick up items for you. It's all of your abilities are latent. So removing items and basically the need to research builds like you would in something like League really simplifies the game a lot and removes what I would consider a pretty serious barrier to entry. I'm not going to make a judgment call one way or another whether that's sustainable long term in terms of, encouraging people to, try different things, because there's you definitely lose a bit of variety there in terms of, people being able to experiment with their builds. But that said, they do add in something that other MOBAs do not, which is adding a variety in the skill tree. When you level up in most other MOBAs, you just add points into one of your 4 skills or unlock your ultimate. And it does a standard thing when you level it up. Usually just, ups damage scaling or something like that. Whatever is appropriate for that particular ability. In HOTS, it's not a whole skill tree, but each time you level up, you can pick from 3 or 4 different things, depending on the character and the level. And I think that adds some variety back in, and some diversity in builds, without really overcomplicating. It does mean you need to know your character a little better before you play them compared to most MOBAs. Or you're, going to be sitting there staring at your abilities saying, well, which one of these do I want? So in terms of knowing what to do ahead of time, it does add a little bit of that, but I think you'd have to do that for item builds anyway and pretty much anything else. Again, in terms of removing toxicity and stuff like that, the removal of an all chat, there is no all chat to my knowledge. You can no longer scream obscenities at the enemy team, and they can't scream obscenities at you or anything like that. Just the simple removal of that adds an immense amount to, reducing toxicity. I do sort of wish there was a pre-approved message thing that you could send to the enemy team. Not even being able to GG is a little bit, it's a little sad, honestly, because, you do have a good game and you want to say good game, good play, and at least having, a variety of pre-approved messages would be nice, I guess. Maybe if you can only send them once the game is over and, that sort of thing, that'd be fine. So getting on to the things that are a little bit middling about the game. Well, first and foremost, HOTS is definitely not a confusing acronym. For anyone who's played StarCraft 2, I mean, I can't. I'm trying not to even flub the name of this game, which is, and I repeat, Heroes of the Storm. Um, and I'm trying not to flub it because StarCraft 2 has an expansion called Heart of the Swarm, which not only uses the same acronym, but even sounds really similar coming off the tongue. So I've been calling it Heroes of the Swarm and Heart of the Storm and all kinds of other like mixed up bullshit. And it's not been going well. But you know, I don't know what I don't know. That's not really a thing you can fix. You pick the name for your game, and it's whatever. Back to the game itself, I guess. I mean, like I've said, it's not as toxic as LoL, but part of that may be because I'm not in too deep just yet. For all I know, I'll get in more, and people will be way more, you know, screaming at the team and stuff like that. But I will say they did do some quality of life improvements in terms of muting people and even being able to mute their pings and things like that, which I think is a vast improvement. I'm not sure whether that's been implemented in other MOBAs. When I left League, it was not. League had just added the like complex pings instead of the primary, you know, just direct pings. So I don't know whether that's in or not, but yeah, in terms of your own ability to mute people, that improves quite a lot. In terms of gameplay itself, I would say there is sort of an issue with there being no clearly established meta. You know, League has a very clearly established meta of, you know, heavy bruiser top, DPS in the middle, ADC and healer in the bottom, and somebody roaming in the jungle. But with the variety in the game types and even just the variety in the characters, you know, and a little more fluid game in overall, there's no clearly established meta, and I don't think there ever will be. For better or for worse. I have yet to make a judgment call on that one way or another, but it does seem a little odd. I will roll with that right into one of my gripes, which is that on the bad side of things, matchmaking does not always build viable teams. Matchmaking in general is not handled great because you party up beforehand. There's no, you know, unlike League or something like that, there's no you don't party up and then pick characters. You pick your character unless you're partying up with, you know, people you know. There is no team building screen. You queue up with the character you're playing, and you trust that the matchmaking is going to put you in a viable team, and more often than not, it does not. I've mostly been playing heavy warriors, occasional assassins, and yeah. Again, the meta is not clearly established, but occasionally I've had weird teams like 4 assassins and a support, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially because matchmaking can sometimes take so long to happen. Like I've sat in matchmaking for 10 to 15 minutes trying to find a match before, which is baffling, especially if you queue up with 5 people. Why it should take so long to find another 5 to team up against, I don't know. And I don't know if that's an issue with matchmaking, tolerance of like what the tolerances are for searching for another team of appropriate skill level, and whether they need to just lower those tolerances and let you play against somebody who's better or worse, or that sort of thing. But yeah, it takes a long time. So to keep rolling on some of my issues with the game, the tutorials at the beginning of the game, when you first, you know, open it up for the first time, are fairly severely lacking. I watched Spencer play through the beginner's tutorial because he was unfamiliar with MOBAs as a genre, and it is not comprehensive at all. It did not explain what I would consider to be a number of key elements. Even, you know, it didn't even explain tower shot priority or anything like that, which, you know, I relayed to him, but that's kind of embarrassing that something as key as that is not explained in the beginner's tutorial. I played the advanced tutorial, which I had hoped was just going to be a hey, you've played a MOBA before, here are the things that are different about ours, and it was not that. It was laughable. It was laughably poor. It did not teach me half of the things that were different about the game that I probably needed to know pretty severely. And to be fair, MOBAs have always been a, learn by immersion game type. But yeah, I mean, this is something that Blizzard is typically very good at. And to see them botch the tutorial so badly is kind of disappointing. Another thing that they sort of botched that I'm pretty surprised at as well, because it's usually another thing they're very good at, is just the user experience. The UX in the lobby is a mess. It's not ugly. It's not even honestly that bad, but none of the flow makes any sense in terms of, well, I need to go, I want to go find this. Where do I do that? How do I get back to that screen? The way you flow through the user experience, the user interface is just, it just does not make any sense. It took me 5 minutes of searching just to find out how to change my player icon. Like, that's embarrassing. I went through every single menu in that thing just to find that. And I mean, it definitely deserves a full overhaul. And this is after they made some pretty drastic changes to the game, is my understanding. At time of writing, they had already rolled, some pretty drastic changes to the entire game after its initial release, I think like 2 years ago. So yeah, Blizzard, get on that. Fix the way your UX flows. So then I'm going to complain about the MOBA community, because I'm always going to. Not in terms of their not in terms of their direct behavior, but their indirect behavior. MOBA players are still not very strategically minded. I mean, part of that is just, I'm sure, is just matchmaking, because I'm a new player. It's dropping me in with a variety of low-level players. And I'm not going to jerk myself off and say, oh, I'm great at MOBAs, I'm great at strategy, I should be playing with the top brass. But trying to get people to even get a unified push going is, as difficult as ever. And because of the variety in the game types, trying to get people to do an attack on an objective is even harder. People also don't even play their roles particularly clearly. Like, assassins will dive with no support. Assassins will, when I'm playing a tank, assassins will just run away and leave me to die with no, DPS around me to at least, provide covering fire or anything like that. Trying to get people to play their roles is as difficult as ever. I can't really blame this on the game. That's just a matter of what the genre is like. But it is as disappointing as ever, even if it's not the game's fault. On a more serious note, in terms of core game mechanics, because most of my issues are in some of the core game mechanics, actually, character collision is a massive issue. There is hard collision between all player characters and basically anything that isn't the small minions has hard collision. There's no slipping by people, and on top of all that, like, the hit boxes, the collision boxes are huge. They extend on some characters well beyond the visual indicator of where your hitbox ought to be. And what this can often mean is that the enemy can, or you can, build a literal wall of people around someone and just shoot them to death because they can't get out of this wall of people. It's baffling. And there are a couple of characters that actually use that to their as a core game mechanic. Like I believe the Witch Doctor Diablo character. I don't remember the actual name they give to him, but the Witch Doctor has like a thing where he raises a ring of zombies to hold you down. But like having that collision is really awful. It's not to say that there isn't collision in other games, but man, like I'm hopeful you'll be able to see in some of this footage exactly what I'm talking about. It can be game breaking. And it can be very, very frustrating. More than once I have died because, well, I have to walk around this person while they're shooting me. I can't pass by them in any way, shape, or form. And because this is a game that has, I would say, higher damage and lower health than some other MOBAs, particularly League, you die very quickly. And so that compounds the issue there. Likewise with the core elements, pathing is problematic. Well, I should say it's problematic sometimes. Other times it's entirely deadly. And some of this might be chalked up to issues with map design, but I'm not going to get into that. I have, when you're trying to watch what's happening on the other side of the map and path yourself over to get there without directly looking, it's one thing to get ambushed while you're not looking at your character and you're trying to watch the team fight that you're trying to get to so you know when to jump in. It's entirely another thing when the pathing will send you through enemy towers, and you're just getting shot to death. There's a game mode where you don't even attack the base directly. This is actually when I keyed in on it the most. There's a game mode where you don't attack the base directly, you attack it indirectly, and if you try and get near the enemy base, like turrets shoot you way more than, like turrets all around their base shoot you dead in moments, no matter who you are. I set a path, and the game pathed me right through the do not pass zone, and I cannot for the life of me explain why that should happen. I don't know what the pathing logic is there, but there are pathing issues, and I digress. Again, with the core mechanics, I have some issues with the navigation. Sometimes it is imprecise, sometimes it is entirely unresponsive, and again, I hope you can see this in some of the footage. And it's not even just getting slowed or stunned or whatever else. There are times where I click to do... I'm used to playing MOBAs. This is not my first rodeo. I put hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours into League. And part of, the give and take in a MOBA is doing, precise movements to... feint and things like that to encourage the enemy to move the way you want so that you can either push them back or get the attacks in that you want or just chip damage. And that does not work in this game at all because so often my clicks do not get registered. And I would chalk it up to being like a network issue or something like that, but I'm checking my, the network meter at the same time as I'm playing, and there's nothing wrong. My ping is in like the 30s or 40s, and there is no reason why my character should not be responding to where I am clicking. You're still walking into the tower. Why are you walking into the tower? I just wanted to get close to the tower, shoot him once, and back up. But no, my character's still walking into the tower, even though I'm clicking behind him. But that's such a core element of the game that I can't believe they got that wrong, and I can't figure out why that's an issue. I really don't understand it. It even shows on the map that the game is registering my click, so why doesn't it happen? I don't know. One more kind of core issue, the auto attack on some characters is pretty inconsistent. On all the assassins I've played, I think it's been fine in terms of click on a character, or click on, you know, a hero or a minion and start to shoot them, and it shoots them. And they continue to shoot them, and usually they'll automatically switch targets when an enemy dies or something like that. However, playing as some of the tanks, I've been playing a lot of my games as Diablo, and Diablo in particular does not want to auto attack. I will click an enemy for him to hit, and he'll hit them once, and then he'll stop. Just stop. It's a miracle if I can get him to hit the same, if I can get him to actually auto attack and hit the same character multiple times. But after, if that enemy gets out of range or dies, he is not going to switch targets. Certainly when it's minions, I mean, you wouldn't expect that if he's attacking heroes, but switching minion targets just does not happen. And that is, again, a core element. You know, it's not, killing minions is not as key as it is in some other MOBAs, but it's still a core mechanic, and not getting it right is a pretty big problem. So, yeah, in summation, I have a lot of issues with some of the core aspects that I really think ought to be easily fixable, and I can't explain why they are the way they are at all to begin with. But I also think that there's a lot of quality of life improvements that really make this something I will... I don't want to say begrudgingly stick with, you know. I'm still having a good time with it, but it does get frustrating, and I can't play this, you know. I'm not going to sit down and play this for hours and hours a day. I tried to play that. I tried to do that the first day I played, and I powered through like 10 games in a sitting. And that gave me a pretty good sense of how I felt about the game, and my feelings have expanded as I've played more. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's got a lot of good stuff, and I'm going to keep playing it one way or another. So, yeah, anyway, thank you guys all for watching. This has been a much longer video than usual. This is sort of my preferred format, but I don't always have a whole lot to say about a game, and I don't always write out, you know, an outline or a script. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you leave a comment. Anyway, thank you guys all for watching again. I've been the Social Solipsist. This has been 52 and 52, and I will see you guys next time.